Brian's holding a potato. Quick. Thank you. It's not a potato. Is that a potato?
Isn't that amazing? I found that the other day when I was out for a walk, and I thought, that is the most potato-like object I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's a stone.
Feel it.
Oh, wow.
That's like, where were you?
Oxfordshire.
Yeah. Why am I even thinking it will smell like a potato? That's ridiculous. All right.
So this is very untidy, but this is the room where this is the dark room where I make the light objects. And it's quite embarrassingly untidy. I don't know if I should actually show you how these work, really.
Go on.
Because it's a bit, sort of takes the magic away a little bit, doesn't it?
Well, if we just let this fall forward then, and you can look away
Just
and we can go, look.
A little peek.
That's nice.
I mean, I used to, before LEDs were around, I used to use television sets at the back here. So I used the TV to project light into the box.
Just with showing one colour on each screen or something?
Well, in fact, I would make tapes of fields of colour which changed. So so I had the same effect as this. I had changing light, but using a very clumsy system, the TV, which prior to LEDs existing, that was the best way of doing it. And then, of course, I run these from a little computer that's in here, an Arduino. They're only about this big. It's a single circuit board.
Do you just like come in here on a whim when you fancy like noodling, or do you lock yourself away for hours?
So I usually, if I start in here, I usually spend the day in here. And I don't work on them like this. I work on them on their back, obviously, because I'm moving around the pieces of card and so on inside and the lights. So I'm looking down at them always. So I end up usually with quite a stiff neck. I made these ones, these simple ones, because I wanted to make things that could be reproduced easily. So I didn't have to make each one individually. Because I was trying to think of a way of making these for the NHS that was affordable for them, which means that I want to be able to make one and then get it reproduced. So these are reproducible, whereas the other ones that I made carefully by hand with lots of curves and so on aren't, essentially.
And over there you've got some sort of 3D plan for a...
This is for an installation that I'm going to do in Barcelona in June. So this is a sort of plan of the room that I'm going to be doing it in. I think the problem with computers is that you can make everything look great on a computer.
Yes.
And the reality is nearly always disappointing if you work that way around.
Yeah.
So if you start with this, which looks a bit kind of ham-fisted, if you make it look good there, you know it's going to look good, even better in the real thing. So they play little pieces of music. That's distorting a bit because it's turned up a bit too loud.
So these are not just bits of speakers, these are working speakers?
They're working speakers,
oh my gosh. Here they are. And
so these ones are as well. This is another speaker experiment up here. I do like the speakers though, because they always sound like they're further away than they really are. So they give if you use them in a room, they give a feeling of distance, of much bigger space.
Is that these particular speakers, or this particular size of speaker?
These speakers are the cheapest ones you can find.
Right.
They're about 80p each. But it's just to do with very small speakers and the fact that there are a lot of them, and I think therefore the phase relationship between them is a bit complicated. And it gives you the impression that you're hearing something. Even now you can get that feeling of it. It sounds like it could be a long way away. Well, let me see if I can get it out and get it working. If you can pick up the end there. I don't know whether this is
always the bridesmaid
still working, or whether it may have had a bit of an accident. Welcome, yes, okay, thank you. We're feeling welcomed. Oh dear, that's not good. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Oh!
So this is part of a set of things called 77 million paintings. So this essentially never repeats in billions of years. It's constantly generating new images.
Do you find as much beauty in that right now then that you would in something that you would take time to create and then lock down, if you see what I mean?
Sometimes, yes. I mean, sometimes it does things that are so bafflingly fantastic, you think, gosh, I never would have thought of that. It creates things that are beyond my taste, if you see what I mean.
Right.
So this is what I like about it, that my taste has a certain boundary to it. There's a certain edge to my taste, and this thing often works outside of that edge.
Would you say that you are as much a scientist as you are an artist?
Yeah, I like... Most of these are science books, actually. So in fact, most of what I read probably is, or at least I'd say 65% is science of some kind. And I like science. I like the fact that it's a public language that anybody can join in with. You know, there's no barrier to entering a scientific conversation. You have to understand what it's about.
Yeah.
But aside from that, there's no mystical side to it of, oh, it's too deep for you to ever understand, or you're not at the right spiritual level, or something like that.
So what do you think of artists who have that kind of opinion, that it is, you know, too deep for most people, or only they can...
Well, I think they're poor conversationalists, generally.
Right.
Oh, that's lovely.
Lovely, isn't it?
I like conversation, you know, and I like argument. I like to see if things can be understood. Now, I think sometimes people are a bit frightened of that, because they think that if you understand something, the mystery disappears. It's suddenly lost all its charm. Well, I don't actually feel that way. I think whenever you think you understand something, what you've done is opened another door to further mysteries. You never get to the bottom of anything.
Yeah.
Everything sort of opens out like a fractal. You know, it keeps becoming richer and richer. When I'm actually making something, I'm working from another part of the brain. I'm just thinking, oh, that's great, I'll do more of that. How do I make that even nicer? So that's working entirely intuitively, generally. Intuitively with quite a lot of experience, but nonetheless, the judgments are made on just a basis of excitement, really. Oh, I like this. I want to do more of it. I want to make more of it. But then afterwards, I look at what I've done and I think, now, what was actually working there? What made me excited about that? What was I doing that I haven't done before, you know? And then, having isolated that, if I can, and you can't always, then that becomes a starting point for something else. So this whole thing about making generative work, which is what I call all of this. There's another nice example of one there. Lots of distractions in this room. I thought, wouldn't it be nice to make music which is not a distinct set of sounds? I've made a lot of music like that. But which is a set of instructions for how sounds could work together and how sounds could be. So that's where I really started on this. If I didn't have any other rules, you would just hear the same things happening over and over again against one another. But in fact, in this case, I've got 3 rules. One is that 14% of these notes, a random 14%, are going to be pitched down by 3 semitones. The second is that 41% of them are going to go an octave down, 12 semitones.
So can I just say, scientist? I'd go further, quantum scientist, because it's all about probabilities here.
Yeah, it's probabilities. And then this is a corrector, so that if any notes are produced that I don't want there, I can correct with this. And in fact, so if it ever produces a B, which I don't want in the piece, it will turn it to an A.
I'm not a musician, but can I ask why you don't want a B in the piece.
Okay.
Does it clash with the key or something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
okay.
these pieces are modal. So that means that it's like a raga, you know, it has a set of possibilities
Right.
which remain constant through the piece. So if I just start it a couple of times and we'll see, let's see what happens. Okay, now let me start it again and see if anything different happens. Okay.
Okay. So there's a difference.
Same thing playing each time.
So does that mean the notes always happen at the same time, but they are different notes?
In this case, they do.
Right.
But I'll show you in this same piece. I've got other instances where one of the changes is the note shift as well. The position of the note shift.
Yeah. Oh well, there's actual computer code there as well.
There's code as well. Yeah. So these are all different types of scripters. So bouncing ball delay. That's a delay that gets faster. Dup, 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 that. Damp velocity above pitch. So that's a way of making high notes damp down. Various kinds of randomizer. Velocitizer, that's a new one. Markov chain. Then there's a whole lot of others.
Markov chain, that's very maths.
Yeah, well, I like Markov chains.
Who doesn't?
Repeater with fixed. Once I've set up a set of rules like this, I mean, as you can see, there are lots of instruments, lots of separate instruments.
I like that. Little wobbly stars, echo bird release.
That's a nice sound.
Oh, that's pretty.
What I do is I get it running, and then I sit in the other room and I write or I read or do whatever I'm doing, and I'm listening all the time it's playing, and then I'm thinking there's too much of that note, whatever that note is, or this is too dense, or there's too much going on in the lower register or something like that.
Yeah.
So then I come back in and I alter the rules a little bit.
Thinking about this, again, traditional music, you have a piece which you lock down, but you're not locking that down, you're locking down a kind of process. It's almost like you're taking this, or part of it, and you're locking that down. This is how I might like a piece to be, but I don't actually mind so much if it changes every time.
That's a good way of explaining it. Yeah. So I'm trying to kind of make a version of me in this software, my taste, if you like, but of course, as I say, because of these rules being additive, or you might say they multiply together in a way, it means lots of things happen that I don't expect. And in reflection, there are some very exotic moments for me that I really like, because they just weren't at all what I thought would happen. Actually, I can demonstrate this much easier, this piece, by this process, by showing you how it works with a drum loop.
Yes.
Because with a drum loop, you can. This all happens so slowly. You don't. It takes 20 minutes to sort of get the idea. But if I put on a drum loop, okay, so we'll just make an ordinary boring rhythm. Okay, and now, because I'm lazy, I can quantize that so it sounds like I played it well. And now I'll put a hi-hat on it as well. Okay, it's not very good, but it'll do for now. Now we have a tedious loop. Okay. Now a lot of music is based just on things like that, and it goes on forever. So now I'm going to try putting in some scripters. The first thing I'm going to put in is a way of reducing the number of beats. So let's so it's only playing 80% of the beat. No, I make it 90.
Can you take it down like really low, just to really show?
sort of
Is the drummer all right?
turns into jazz.
And that's an unpredictable.
Yeah, just randomly picks.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back up a bit. So now let's have it hit some other drums occasionally. So what's going to happen now? I'm going to 12% of the time, let's say.
It's actually going to miss a drum and hit by accident.
Hit another
drum.
one, yeah.
Right.
So let's see what. Okay, let's have it hit some other drums too. It's a pretty crappy drummer, I have to say.
Well, no, I have to say actually, this is way more interesting, with the greatest of respect, than the original drum loop, isn't it? It makes it sound human.
But now we're gonna do something that will make it. Now he's going to start putting in some rolls.
Oh, hello. It's building up as part of it now, I think. So, can you just get a close-up of this? I love this bit here where it's kind of reporting what it's doing. It's almost like a debug screen.
He's got the zoom.
Oh, okay.
Script.
Yeah, this bit here. Is anyone else doing this kind
Not
of thing?
as far as I know.
Because you could very well be killing human musicians by doing this.
Too many of them anyway. In fact, let me just put a more interesting loop in there. Let's try this one. I don't know what this is, but it's called Super Evil Funk, which I quite like the sound of. Can't remember. I must have done it more than 4 days ago. I always forget them after a few days. Oh yeah. Now this is
wow.
pretty interesting. So it starts with this loop. Okay, now I'll put the scripture in. Little bit of information that we're looking at.
This is one drum loop, but like
No hands.
probably being randomised.
My hands there.
Getting down with Eno.
Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, but you were right. I mean, that actually really illustrates what's going on in your longer, slower
That's right.
piece.
Yeah. So
with drums.
it's a very small amount of initial information which keeps getting altered,
But
mutated.
that sounds like a really skilled. Bear with me here. This sounds like a really skilled drum programmer has crafted that, like, you know, as a 3-minute piece.
Yeah, hours of sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you may very well have just ruined the music industry.
Again. Oh dear. So this is a randomly robot rhythm guitar, really. So thing about those random robot players is they can play as fast as you want.
In a way, I would call that kind of ambient. That's kind of like a big soundscape, kind of like
That last sound.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even the whole thing. I know it's kind of a rather racy pace, but what's
It's faster than most ambient music. Yeah.
yes. It's almost like you're more about the random than you are about the plandom these days. I mean, is that?
That's a good word.
You're welcome. I mean, is that the thing? Are you kind of you just looking for the random beauty? And
No, it's not.
stuff,
It's not the
or-
only way I work.
No.
I mean, it's the thing that's different
Yeah.
about the way I work, I think. But a lot of the time, I'm just working like any other musician would. I'm listening to things and thinking, oh, I like that. I'll do more of that.
Yeah.
But one of my ways of getting to, oh, I like that, is by using structures, random structures that produce things that I wouldn't have made.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm always interested in what is at the edge of my taste envelope, if you like. What's happening at the edges, and randomness is a way of finding out. Anyway,
In fact, I mean, you're famous for the cards, aren't you? Which
Yeah.
is in a sense
they
the
are.
same thing. Where are they?
on the corner there.
No way.
Yeah.
May I? Can I?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, this is all about shaking it up, isn't it? It's about making oblique strategies, discover the recipes you are using, and abandon them.
There you go. So that's not what a computer would do. A computer would discover the recipes you're using and keep doing them again and again.
Yeah, yeah. Do you said yes, the cards are over there. Do you still use these cards when you're
Yeah.
working?
Yeah, I do. They're useful.
Are they?
I'm working alone a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But if you're working with other people, you get a lot of information and derailment from the fact that there are other people there. But if you're working alone, you can very easily get into a rut,
Yeah.
and where you're just sort of routinely doing the same things over and over, going to the same instruments.
I would imagine even as a group of people that happens, especially if
Well,
it's
yes.
a tight group that
Yes.
works together a lot.
Yes, that's right. Well, that's why people have producers.
Yeah. Work at a different speed.
Yeah, that's a useful one. So that can mean a lot of different things. That can mean changing the speed here, but it also can mean do things at a different speed,
Almost
like
without
work
thinking,
very,
or-
very
yeah,
quickly,
Yeah.
or work very, very slowly.
Yeah.
You know, take a minute to get to that guitar, pick it up,
Yeah.
put it on, plug it in.
So
Just take a long time doing something.
when you came up with these, I mean, I don't know the process with which you came up with these. Did you sit down one day and think, I know all the, write them down, or did you like write them over 10 years, or what happened?
It started out with noticing that when I was working in the studio, when I was in Roxy actually, we were under a lot of pressure because we had a small budget, and under pressure you forget all your best ideas quite often. So under pressure you sort of get into a rut and you think, I've got to get finished, and the panic sort of pushes away your observation. You're not really paying attention to what's going on. You're panicking basically. So the first one I ever wrote said, honour thy error as a hidden intention, because so often I noticed listening to recordings of gigs and so on, it was sometimes the mistakes were really interesting, but you don't notice it in the anxiety of the moment. So I just made that rule, and I used to put it up on the mixing desk, honour thy error as a hidden intention, just to remind myself that if something went wrong, don't immediately chuck it out. Just for a moment, give it a listen and see whether there's something interesting about it. After I wrote that first one, I then added about another dozen or so, and then I had a list, but the list didn't work so well, because what you tend to do if there's a list, you just take the one that's most convenient. You know, the one that most lets you carry on doing exactly what you're already doing. So I thought they should be on cards, and I should just pull a card out. So, yeah.
Brian, what would your closest friend do?
Well, this is also interesting because you have to think, who is my closest friend? And that can be quite disorientating in the middle of a working day.
Yeah.
I like that one because it takes you out of your own head and you start to... It's like when you play something for a friend and you're immediately hearing what they're hearing, not what you're hearing anymore, and you suddenly think, oh God, that's too loud. Ooh, this bit's a bit dull, and so on. You're suddenly critical in quite a different way when you're in somebody else's head. So that's a way of putting yourself in somebody else's head. This is all notebooks.
Okay, right. What sort of things are in the notebooks?
Well, I'll show you if you like.
Yes.
So they're
Oh, wow.
drawings and writings, designs for things. These ones are all about music. These ones are all about women. This is me learning Italian.
Okay.
Learning
all the important
all
words
the
in
important
Italian.
parts in Italian. Yeah. I still don't speak much Italian, but I do know those words.
Do you ever go back to them?
No, not very often. It's funny. I keep thinking, I'll save them for when I run out of ideas.
We're still waiting.
And I'm still waiting, yeah.
Wow. I was expecting it to be full of music. I don't know why, but what's that?
This is about bell chimes, about trying to generate sequences of bell ringing. I'm always slightly nervous in doing this in case there's some glaring piece of pornography about to...
Well, we've come close with the other ones. So.
I have it so that if I come out here, I hear it coming from, you know, all these other speakers that I've got sitting up here and around here. That one there, that one, those two.
And they're all plumbed into the same system?
These ones up here, yeah, they're all... That one there is another one.
What do your neighbours think?
My neighbours are very happy with me.
Right.
Okay. Because I have great parties. And I always invite them.
It's the wisest thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. And how are you with hearing your own stuff when it comes on the radio or...
I'm okay with it after a time, but when things are new, it's very difficult to get out of the I'm still working on this mode.
Right.
That's actually one of the reasons that I work in there and I listen out here. Because if you're in work mode, you're always dicking around with things, you know.
Yeah.
Your temptation is always to do things, put things in. So I play it back through these speakers and I come out here and I do something else. Like I do the washing up or I write an email or something like that. And then I find I listen differently. One thing I noticed, for example, a very long time ago when I first started working on tape was that I would make a piece of music at, say, 15 inches per second. And if I switched it to 7.5, I preferred it, nearly always. And one of the reasons was because there was half as much happening at any given moment. You know, it just separated out all the events. So my natural tendency is to want to make things happen, to put things in. Everyone's tendency is, I think. Switch it to half speed and suddenly, there's space. There's some space there.
Yeah.
You know? Again, this is why people like to have collaborators or producers, because the producer is supposed to be the other brain, the other side of the brain.
Yeah.
Whatever side is not engaged at the
Yeah.
moment, you know. They want somebody who will say, what about we go in this direction?
Yeah.
What about we take that out completely? What about we miss out one of the important elements to see what it sounds like? That's the kind of thing I like doing. Or saying, this bit is great, that bit isn't so good, why don't we just get rid of that bit and make this one twice as long? It's difficult for anybody in a band to say that sometimes because they're all aware of how much time they've each invested. But it's much easier for some twat from the outside to walk in and say, oh, that bit doesn't sound so good, let's get rid of it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
It's
tea.
nice to talk to you.
Oh, it's been lovely. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Okay. Oh God, what's it up to now? Look at that one. That's singing.
I'm loving it.